Felt like I was at my own funeral. I think we all have a friend that you can't say no to. And so I'm just always grateful Kelly didn't ask me for a new car. I just flew in from South Africa. I've been over there for 10 days. And this is, I think, the second or third time that Kelly changed the date of this big event. And she kept calling me, can you come now? And I'm like, yeah. Well, we canceled that idea. Can you come now? So I'm happy to be here. And that's probably why I look like I fell off a bus. I apologize. When my Aunt Lucy was 63 years old, she started walking 5 miles every day. Now she's 91 and we don't know where she is. And we laugh. But the number one limiting belief that holds us back from accomplishing our goals is always focusing in on a future outcome, when in reality, the only answer we really can come up with is, where are you right now? It's like ordering an Uber ride that requires that you enter in your current location, and if you lie about where you are, the directions won't work. So my question is, where are you right now? And what did you have to do to get here? Are you pleased with where you are? Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, socially, financially, within your family, fun and recreation, and charitable giving, the 9 areas of life that make us the best version of ourselves. Where are you in each of those categories? And are you willing to do something about it so that when you leave here, you're never going to be the same? So I'm a speaker. I love to fire people up. I'm a storyteller. I want to take you on an emotional roller coaster ride and hopefully conclude by lip syncing 3 Taylor Swift songs so you'll never be the same. But as I had an opportunity to attend Carl's workshop and Dr. Liz's workshop and listen to these panelists, Brett and obviously Carl and Kelly and David and Michael and Donnie, and to hear about the other folks who are here as experts, I thought maybe I would just shift gears and maybe add some value and teach you something that's the most passionate thing in my life right now. At my age, leaving a legacy. All of us have bucket lists, and I've had crazy experiences in my life, and I really don't have a lot more things to accomplish on my bucket list. Isn't that kind of weird, and it's kind of sad, and it kind of fires you up all at the same time? So what I want to do is I just want to ask you if you really believe that if you could somehow improve your ability to tell your story. Now remember, the purpose of a leader is to grow more leaders who believe what you believe, not generate more followers. Now remember, Dr. Liz, she put it in her own words, but I quote my buddy Simon Sinek. We've been on the program together many times. He and I share the same publisher in Penguin Random House of my book, The Art of Significance. He's famous for saying the goal is not to do business with everybody who wants what you have. The goal is to do business only with those who believe what you believe, so they choose you, not just somebody who does what you do. I'm a songwriter. I love the hook idea. I love the tagline that Liz is calling it. I love the idea of realizing that it's the hook of the song that sells the song. My buddy Tim Nichols wrote, "Live Like You're Dying" for Tim McGraw. The dance, Garth Brooks, I could have missed the pain, but then I had to miss the dance. It's the hook. So I love hooks. I love putting things in consolidated words that we can hang our hat on and really make a difference in our lives. So may I ask you a question in a consolidated hook line? If you are an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you are who you are, attracted into this team referral network, which is one of the finest of its kind in the entire world, I know for a fact that you're an extraordinary human being, but when you speak, people will expect you to present your story at the same level of excellence that created it. And so I want to just take my time right now to take you on this journey. I've taught public speaking at the university level for 11 years. I've consolidated everything I've learned in a 42-year Hall of Fame career into a syllabus that I used in my classes at the University of Utah. at Duke University, at Alabama, at Vanderbilt, Harvard, the list goes on and on. And I remind everybody that it's not about you, which we've heard all day long. Seek to bless, not impress. If you're nervous before you speak, it means you think it's about you. If you're excited before you speak, you know it's about them. Everything that we need to understand about communication, one-on-one, one-on-12 in a board meeting, if you're trying to raise capital campaign for your entrepreneurial idea, no such thing as a financial crisis, only an idea crisis. Ideas create income, but if you can't present your idea in a passionate, creative, imaginative way, people aren't going to invest in you or your amazing idea. So with your permission, I brought 3 books actually, Kelly. First book is my flagship book. It's called The Art of Significance, Achieving the Level Beyond Success. And when I finished my book tour, I realized the number one most frequently asked question was, Clark, what's the difference between success and significance? And I think the answer appeals to all of us in this room, or you wouldn't be here. May I illustrate? I'm in a conversation with one of my football teammates. He's drafted into the NFL in the 2nd round by the Philadelphia Eagles. After 2 years with the Eagles, he's traded to my Oakland Raiders. After 4 years in the league, playing at the highest Pro Bowl level, one day he walks out of practice, quits, never to play again. Why? He loved being a football player, but he hated playing football. Can any of you relate? He got what he thought he wanted by focusing in on what matters at the moment. He loved the celebrity perks and the fame and fortune that allowed him to live this life we call successful, which is competing against others. Nice house, nice car, nice holidays, nice income, nice title. But because his inner voice and his true purpose in life was misaligned with who he was and what he had to do to get what he was trying to get, he would never live a life of significance, and he would die with his intentions, with regrets, and with his music still in him. Can any of you relate? Successful people get what they think they want, focused on what matters at the moment. And those of us striving to live lives of significance actually want what we get by focusing on what matters most, which is what lasts the longest. And I would suspect that that's the attraction of Team Referral Network. To come together in your chapter meetings, to come together in your alliances, in your franchise movements. I think San Diego's here, Ventura County's here, but she has, I know she has franchises in Georgia and Texas and some other places. And I would suspect that the draw, remember we don't attract who we want, we attract who we are. I would suspect that the attraction for each of us here is based on what Dr. Jim Rohn said, that everybody has bastardized by not giving him credit, who came up with the idea that it's true that we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. Which means if you hang around with 5 broke people, you're going to become the 6th. If you hang around with 5 negative, whining, blaming, complaining people, you're going to become the 6th. When you put a hard-to-catch horse in the same field with an easy-to-catch horse, most of the time you end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses. And in the human experience, when you put a healthy child in the same room with a sick child, most of the time you end up with 2 sick children. Moral of the story: to be disciplined, healthy, and significant, we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings. Isn't that why you're here? I know that's why I said yes, and that's why I'm here. I've already met some significant human beings whom I really want to keep in touch with. Carl, dude, Brett, you inspire me. We connect at several levels, even though I'm not as good looking as you. So if I could possibly add value, I think where I want to take my time today is to just help you understand the significance of words, the significance of communication, the significance of finding your own signature story, but add to that a sense of urgency so that when you leave here, you will take action and never be the same. By show of hands, how many of you believe that we can actually leave here differently than we were when we arrived? How many of you believe that one moment in time changes us forever? I do. Proof. I was on the program with Henry Winkler, a famous comedic actor who was most famous for playing a role in a television sitcom called Happy Days. And he played the coolest guy who ever lived, the character of the Fonzie. Hey, whoa. Saddest thing in this illustration is some of you in this room are so young, you don't even know who I'm talking about. That's just wrong. You need to Google this guy. So freaking cool. All leather, walk into a room, jukebox isn't playing any music, and he hits it and it starts playing. No lights on in the room. He goes, and the lights click on. Fonzie, he and I, Henry Winkler and I, we finish our speeches. He decides he wants to take some time off, treat himself to a matinee movie. So we slide in through the side exit door of the theater, and as we shuffle ourselves down the aisle, we find ourselves vacant seats. As we turn to sit down in the chair to look up at the movie screen, the little girl sitting right behind us smiles this giant smile. She points her finger and she slowly says, Fonzie. Henry Winkler immediately snaps into the Fonzie character from Happy Days. Hey, whoa. And the lady sitting next to the little girl passes out. Henry Winkler milks the moment. Whoa, I thought this only happened on TV drama. Hey, how cool is this? Whoa. Theater manager comes out, takes care of the woman's needs. She's lying in the aisle, cold pack on her forehead. She's asked one question. Why did you pass out? She said, my little girl is autistic. And that is the very first word she has ever spoken in her entire life. You gotta believe. But what gets us to believe is the emotion that you just experienced through the power of a story. It's so critically important that we accept the challenge that if you're serious about taking yourself to the next level, starting today, you must begin with identifying what you believe, who you are, what is your journey, what experiences have you had in your life that have life lessons worth sharing with someone else. So that when you crave to start your own podcast, Carl, or crave to be a guest on some big name podcasts, people know that you're the compelling individual with the stories that are consolidated, that are funny, evocative, with a quote, and emotional so people remember them. That you don't go down rabbit holes, that you've consolidated your beliefs, your feelings into emotional, gripping, compelling stories that people remember. Guaranteed. If I want you to remember the support that Kelly Holmes and her entire organization gives you, and I say, they're there for you all the time, you're going to go, yeah, and then you drive home or you fly home. But what happens if I illustrate the significance of unconditional support with a 30-second vignette? A mother encourages her daughter to come home as soon as school is over. The time comes, the time goes. 30 minutes later, daughter walks in through the front door of her home and her mother scolds her. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. She says, oh, mommy. I walked my friend Sally home. She dropped her doll on the sidewalk. It broke all to pieces. It was awful. Her mother said, so you're late because you stayed to help your friend pick up the pieces of the doll and put it back together again? She said, oh no, mommy, I didn't know how to fix the doll. I just stayed to help her cry. You see the power of storytelling. By a show of hands, maybe I'll just make the statement. I don't want to flatter myself and sound so self-important. But every single time I speak somewhere in the world, I always have a handful of people or more come up to me and say, hey, could you coach me? Do you have a speaking program? Obviously I do, or I wouldn't have brought it up, Liz. But by a show of hands, do you think it would help you become the best version of yourself? Do you think it would help you figure out your niche and stand out in the marketplace if you just became a better communicator, i.e., an awesome storyteller that creates your niche market? We can't tell other people's stories or we have no unique factor. We know that. Just the other day, I'm on a program and this guy, big, huge speaker's fee, pretty big name. He comes out on stage and he tells a couple of stories. I've been in this business for so long. He told a couple of stories and kind of claimed they were his. And I'm back there going, really? And the saddest thing is the speaker who followed him did not hear this guy speak. And he was also a pretty big name speaker with a huge speaker's fee. And he told those same two stories, which destroyed the previous speaker's credibility and his own. But if you tell your own stories, that will never, ever happen. It'll make you that person that you need to be. And I promise you, you have some significant stories that will change people's lives. Guaranteed, if you're ordinary before you're extraordinary, and all the other things that we've talked about in our general and breakout sessions today. So as a student of storytelling, the second book I brought is called Story Selling, forward by Mark Victor Hansen from our Chicken Soup days. And I've studied the 6 brain chemicals that will actually influence someone's decision-making, especially if you need to sell yourself. It's the secret to dating. I know you put Brett on the spot. I thought his answer was just killer. The vulnerability of Carl, how cool was that story? My goodness gracious. But to add to those stories in a very, very powerful and unique way makes you stand out because no one else can tell those stories. As a songwriter, Michael, we need to talk, man. You're an impressive dude. I love your history and whatever happened. We got to talk. And he's nodding his head because he knows for a fact exactly what I'm going to say. As far as creating your own unique factor and honing in on the stories that you know are true because they changed you and they'll change someone else. Let's just put it into perspective of a songwriter or a recording artist who recorded so much music back in the day. The dream of every songwriter, recording artist is to have a platinum selling record, platinum selling song, which means we sell 1 million copies. And what keeps us songwriters and recording artists true to our soul without selling out is the reality that there are 300 million people in America, which means you can literally piss off 299 million and still go platinum. You don't have to be everything to everybody. Be true to you. And you are enough. You are supposed to be here. I guarantee it. So let's just study the brain chemicals and I'll illustrate them to the best of my ability. With the idea in mind, raise of hands, how many of you would believe that if you could leave today with a little piece of me, a book that you can take to the pool, that you can take to the beach, that you can actually refer to and put it in your pocketbook, your handbag, your briefcase, your desk drawer, to remind you about the significance of communicating from a brain chemical perspective? And if so, everybody else has a giveaway. I'll give the first person that meets me at the table all 3 books. And then I obviously have the offer. If you want to buy 1 book, it's $20. And then because I'm into modern math, I'll give you 3 for $50 because I'm such a good guy and I'm really a big deal. So let's talk about the 6 brain chemicals and illustrate them, proving true that you also have stories like this. And let's get underway. Brain chemical number 1, endorphins. When you want to influence someone to increase their resilience and start to think outside the line, you use humor or a story about resilience. And I guarantee that triggers in that person with whom you're communicating a deeper feeling so they actually say, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. I like me best, bro, when I'm with you. I want to see you again. That's unique factor 101. Let me illustrate. Hey, thanks for coming, man. I'd like to start over. Kelly, will you come up and introduce me, please, man? You missed some good stuff, but you're buffed. I'd come in late too, man. That was awesome. Endorphins, triggered by humor. So let's celebrate us in this room. Outside of these walls of this Pomona Conference Center, that's not what it's called though, is it? Like I said. We have a minimum requirement, mediocrity. And in here, we're celebrating taking ourselves from where we are to where we want to be. It's awesome, is it not? But every time I get on an airplane, I'm reminded about this minimum requirement mediocrity in which we live. I just flew from South Africa to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Salt Lake City, Utah, where I live half the year in the mountains, and from Salt Lake City, Utah to Ontario, California, which means I was force-fed the same pre-flight safety demonstration on every one of those flights going to and coming back. Any of you listen to the pre-flight safety demonstration on board the plane? I'm so sorry, you need therapy. Anybody who has to be taught how to put a seatbelt on in public should not be allowed in public unsupervised. In the event of a decrease in cabin pressure, an oxygen mask will appear. Reach up, tug on the gold cup, place it over your nose and mouth, securing it tightly with an elastic strap. Breathe normally. You're going down. And they say, breathe normally. And these flight attendants, they give us brain damage. Bring your seat up to the most upright and uncomfortable position. Alive, dead. Alive, dead. I survived a plane crash, 1988, Stanton, Virginia, Shenandoah Valley Airport. Trust me, when you're going down and you finally hit the ground, an inch and a half does not make a difference. And these flight attendants lie. They stand up, we're here for your safety. No, they're not. When you're going down, they're strapped in and screaming just like we are. Just once, I want them to give me the microphone. Let me tell people aboard the plane what really happens in an emergency. Ladies and gentlemen, in the event of a decrease in cabin pressure, a little gold cup's going to conk you in the head. When you stop screaming, brace yourself for a 200 feet per second vertical dive. And if you're traveling with more than one child, pick your favorite. Because you ain't got enough time to make another choice. What happens when we get on a plane and the flight attendant isn't just in the little box and just trying to do his or her job, but they want to make flying fun? Do we not remember that? Isn't that the secret to referrals? Yeah. I'm on Delta Airlines. We're coming into Dallas, Texas. Huge turbulence. We're bouncing all over the sky. We finally land. We bounce, we land. We bounce, we land. Taxi to the gate. Flight attendant comes over the PA system. Hi, welcome to Dallas, Texas. If you enjoyed your flight, tell your friends you flew Delta Airlines. If you did not enjoy your flight, tell your friends you flew Southwest. And everybody on the plane goes, huh? And obviously she had a great relationship with leadership, because she then says, and please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened while Captain Kangaroo bounces us the rest of the way to the gate. That's funny. And is it contagious? Yeah, an elderly woman walking in the aisle right behind me with her cane. She comes to the doorway. You the pilot? Yes, ma'am. Did we really land or did we get shot down? What you're feeling is endorphins. And endorphins are addictive because they don't remain in our body. It's why people love to run long distances and we love to laugh. You want somebody to crave you, to come back into their presence, to engage with you in a personal relationship or in a business transaction. Trigger endorphins because it's addictive. I need that feeling again, and you're the one that gave it to me. And the other thing that triggers endorphins, resilience. You can get back up and go again. Never judge a man or a woman when they're up. Always judge a man or a woman when they're down. May I share a story that brings me to every stage? I played football for 13 years total. One day in practice, the dream ended. We had a tackling drill. Coach blew the whistle. Another player and I ran full speed into each other in a violent head-on collision, smashing my right shoulder into the cutting edge of my fiberglass pads, and we slammed to the ground. When Lyle got off of me, I had compressed my 7 cervical vertebrae in my neck. I'd severed the axillary nerve in my right deltoid muscle, and I'd suffered a grade level 2 concussion. Google that, it was a bad deal. My eye drooped. I had loss of speech. I couldn't talk anymore. My right side was paralyzed and my arm dangled helplessly at my side. Coach comes running over. Clark, you all right? What happened? My front show. He says, wow, are you from Laverne? I'm just kidding you, Kelly. He says, you better just lay there. I said, whoa. A doctor that was present on the field, he came over and he examined me, pulls the coach aside. He says, Clark's got serious nerve damage. In fact, he might even have serious brain damage. Coach looks at him and says, how will we ever know? Nice guy. Finally, my eye went back to normal. My speech came back. I could talk again. But my right side stayed paralyzed. My arm dangled helplessly at my side, leaving me paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 of the very best doctors in all of North America. Came down to Centinela Hospital in Inglewood. Dr. Frank Job Curlin, he took care of me. I went to Craig Rehabilitation Center over in Colorado. 15 of the 16 doctors told me I would not recover, I would not get any better. How many of you have ever heard that? And what happens if you believe it? You never get any better. And my life spiraled downward until I hit what I thought was rock bottom. Now that I've fought my way back to a 95% recovery, my best sport was actually baseball. I had an invitation tryout by the Kansas City Royals out of high school as a baseball pitcher. Played football and baseball at the University of Utah. Everything in one moment in time was taken away from me, and I thought it was over. I thought I hit rock bottom. Now that I've recovered, the three most frequently asked questions are these. Number one, what do you mean you thought you hit rock bottom? Answer is very profound. No matter how hard it gets, no one ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the baseline core values on which we were raised. And if any of your businesses seem to have hit a bump in the road during COVID or since COVID, they didn't hit rock bottom. They hit the baseline governing principles and core values on which your company or organization was built. It's so critically important that we just focus in on belief. Second question, Clark, why did you go to so many different doctors? I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better. Who reminded me, and I remind all of us, knowledge is power, but it has no heart. I don't use slides. I want connection. I don't want to narrate some information. Knowledge is power, but it has no heart. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. What are you going to do today with what you've learned? Will you take a piece of me home with you? Because I only brought 60 books and I ain't carting them home. So we might start making some deals when I get through speaking. All the information in the world is going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology. He doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. What's my point? Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. We sell with emotion, we close with logic, we know that. But without a story that triggers one of these 6 brain chemicals, we are just like everybody else because no one will leave us feeling differently than they ever felt before. The goal in sales, the goal in leadership and parenting and coaching is based in the reality of a transference of trust and how quickly we can transfer that trust because we're hardwired not to trust strangers. We've got to break down that barrier as quickly as possible. And the fastest way to do that is sharing a well-told story that's at the same level of excellence that created it. Third most frequently asked question, what took me so long to get better? What took me so long to pivot? With all due respect, we know people outside of these walls who are still confused about what to do next since COVID ended. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months because I was asking the wrong questions. Are you? I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. And once we answer why, figuring out the how to becomes clear and simple. And so you don't think this was a rah, get up and go again, you can if you think you can recovery story. It doesn't work. What did you say, Carl, about coaching? That you said something cool that was like if you hire a coach or something, it only lasts as long as until the money runs out or something like that? Yeah, it stops working as soon as you stop paying. I don't know how I've survived all these years on the road without you. Thanks, man. That was good. Yeah, you want half of my speaker's fee, which is absolutely free. So we'll split it, man. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months because I was asking the wrong questions. And now I know it's based in physiology, my recovery. And any one of you in this room can pivot. You can get back up and go again if you believe no matter what your past has been, you have a spotless future. Because, physiologically proven, when we only talk about the what and the how, we only engage the brain, we only engage the head. But when we add to that a compelling why, a passionate why, and a compelling want, your own reason, and your why is bigger than your why not, it connects the head with the heart, and physiologically proven, our blood pumps more rapidly, our brains fire, and our muscles magnify, which maximizes our performance. Are you only a transactional human being, a transactional friend, a transactional spouse or significant other, a transactional boss, a transactional business person? Which means you only talk about the what and the how. Here's the system. Don't raise your hands. Any of you guilty trying to sell past the close? You put together this amazing slide stack. You get this amazing PowerPoint presentation. You got this appointment. And in their eyes, you can see they're ready to sign. They're ready to buy. They're ready to engage. And you're like, shut up and sit down, man. I got 17 more slides to go. You have no idea how long it took me to put this presentation together. Close it when it's ready to close. It's important that we understand the value of a story and the way and mechanism and simple system that we can use to trigger the right chemical to get the right response and influence that decision-making process in that moment. Second brain chemical, adrenaline. So endorphins is the motivational drug. Second brain chemical is adrenaline, which is the accelerator drug. I need some participation. Is there a man in this room who is married and your drive home is over 2 hours from Pomona today? Anybody? I feel like I'm in a McDonald's drive-through window. What? Right here. What's your name? Steve, what's your wife's name? Raina. So how far away is she right now from you? 2.5 hours. Okay, so let's play this game for a second. Story time, you ready? Can you make up stories? Can you make up parables? I'm a man of faith. We don't know if those parables of Jesus were true. They just taught a great principle. We don't know if there was a good Samaritan. We don't know if there was a lady at the well, do we? But in that culture, that Jewish culture, that was the way that they communicated, by parables, telling stories so they would remember the lesson long after they heard the story. So maybe you'll give me permission to make up a scenario. So we break after the evening's done, and some of us get together, and we're basketball fans. We've been watching the playoffs. And we divide up into 2 teams. And Steve's on my team, and he thinks he's all that in a bag of chips, and he's putting on some moves. And he plants on his leg to go up to slam dunk it, and he blows out his knee. He hears the snap. He lands on the floor, and his knee just immediately swells up the size of the basketball. He's in excruciating pain, and we're so compassionate that we leave him there screaming and just move the game over to a different basket. And when we finally finish the game, we go back to check on Steve, and he's like, how you doing? I'm so bad. Oh, this is going to affect my business. I can't drive. It's my right leg. This is devastating. I know I'm going to need surgery. So we pick him up, and we take him over to the Sheraton, and we put him in his room, and we prop him up with some ice. We're trying to take care of him. We come back down to the reception. We're all hanging out at the Sheraton like we did 10 years ago when I spoke or whatever. And Kelly says, hey, let's call Steve and see what he's doing. Steve, we're down here. Why don't you come down and join us? Great networking. We're kind of, having a couple of cocktails. We're a little bit looser, more vulnerable. And Steve says, I can't. My knee hurts so badly, and I'm so worried about my business. It requires driving, and I can't drive. I'm going to need surgery. I'll be out of commission for 6 or 8 weeks. I don't know what's going to happen to my business. I can't come down. And he hangs up, and he's so proud of himself that he didn't succumb to Kelly's persuasion. Come on, Steve, it's going to be fun. And then 10 minutes later, the phone rings again. Steve answers it. And the guy on the other line says, Steve, this is Officer John. Is your wife's name Ellie? Is your wife's name Raina? And he says, yeah. And he says, your wife's been in a serious automobile accident, and she's 2.5 hours away. If you don't leave right now, there's a really good chance that you're not going to ever see your beloved Raina alive again. He hangs up. Does his knee hurt? Is he in too much pain? Does he tell himself, I can't move, I can't? Is he worried about his future? No. And because of who we are in this network, we all step up and say, you can't drive, hop in my car, let's fly like the wind. We get rolling, and 10 minutes out of the parking lot of this conference center, his cell phone rings again, and it's Officer John. Steve, I'm so sorry. Your buddies back home put me up to this. They all paid me $100 each. Your beloved Raina, she is not in an automobile accident. She's safe and sound. In 30 minutes, he went from, woe me, I have too much anxiety, give me medication, I can't handle the stress, to, my why is bigger than my why not. Get out of the way. We've all had those experiences where we rose to the occasion, and after the fact, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe what I was able to accomplish when my why was bigger than my why not. And then 10 minutes later, he's so freaking pissed off, he's going to find every one of his buddies and kill them and go to prison. That's not a funny joke, but the power of adrenaline and the scenario to prove that we do what we believe and we follow our belief can change your day, can change your marriage, can change your personal and professional relationships. You see why I just choose not to be around people who tell stories from an open wound when I remind them that that's good, but let's tell stories from a scar. People don't give a rat's wackazoodle if I've ever succeeded. They want to know, Clark, did you ever fail? Did you ever fall down? And then what did you do about it? And together we rise. What you just experienced as I made up this scenario, with all due respect to Steve and Raina, is called adrenaline. And that's the accelerator drug that will supersede any emotion that's holding us back from peak performance. Guaranteed. Next time you have someone say, I've got so much anxiety, I'm so stressed out, now you'll always remember that's a choice. That's not a condition. You see, when I was paralyzed, I had so many folks come up to me and try to convince me that I was depressed. And I had physician friends come up and say, Clark, let me prescribe this. We're all worried about you. We think you're suicidal. Yeah, I lost my identity. I thought I was a football player, when in reality, that's just what I did. It's not who I am as a man. And when we identify ourselves in terms of what we do instead of who we are, we become human doings instead of human beings. Unacceptable of significance is what we seek, and that's not what gives us our unique factor. You're competing against everybody in your industry who are human doings, transactional, how and what. And you come with the story, and you come with the presentation, and you come with the emotional communication. I guarantee they will choose you, not just somebody who does what you do. I want to give you my cell phone number. That's a crazy idea, but I trust you. If you are serious about having a little conversation about me coaching you up, write down my cell phone number. You can always call and say hello. Hopefully there's no psycho stalkers in the room. And if so, I'll just give you Kelly's cell phone number, Carl's cell phone number, Brett's cell phone number, so we can enjoy this experience together. My number is 801. I can't believe I'm doing this. 842-3484. I really want to add value to Kelly Holmes. I love this woman. I admire her. I send the utmost respect for her resilience, for her battle with breast cancer that maybe some of you don't know about, her inspiration on a daily basis that triggers emotions in me that I need triggered to make sure I'm the best version of myself. And I figure I'm just all here. I don't fly out till 6 in the morning, and we can have a pretty good powwow if anybody's interested, especially if you come over and buy all my books so I don't have to take them on the plane. Third brain chemical, dopamine. When you want to influence someone to actually step it up, to rise to the occasion and be more than they've ever been, you tell a story that triggers dopamine. Dopamine is the performance drug. Endorphins, the motivation drug. Adrenaline, the accelerator drug. Dopamine is the performance drug. Let me quickly tell you about my dad. My dad's my hero. A lot of people ask me how I come up with my stories. I'm the primary contributor author of all the Chicken Soup books, sold 400 million copies. That's quite a bit of paper we've put out into the universe, and they're 3.5-page stories. One of my most iconic stories, I'm 12 years old, I'm standing in line with my dad to purchase tickets to go to the circus. Finally, there's only one family between myself and my father and the ticket counter. One family, 8 children, probably all under the age of 12. One can sense that they didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have expensive clothes. I didn't see any little animals anywhere, but they were very, very clean clothes, and the children were well behaved. Nobody was running all around. Oh, there's nothing I can do. They were standing 2 by 2 in line, holding hands like the modern day Von Trapp family singers. The mother had a hold of her husband's hand. She's looking up at him like, gosh, you're my knight in shining armor. He's looking at her like, you got that right. And with all the pride he could muster, he steps up to the ticket counter. And he asks the ticket lady for the purchase price of the tickets. The ticket lady quotes the price. The man's wife let go of her husband's hand. Her countenance changed. The man's lips started to quiver. Again, the man leans forward and again asks for the purchase price of the tickets. The ticket lady quotes the price. Turns out the man didn't have enough money. How was he supposed to turn and tell 8 little kidlets that he couldn't afford to take them to the circus? They were talking about the elephants and the clowns and the acrobats, all the things that they were going to see that night. They'd never been. Seeing what was going on, my father reached in his pocket. He pulls out a $20 bill, drops it on the cement. We were not wealthy in any sense of the word, and $20 in those days was a lot of money. My dad went to great lengths to keep this father's pride intact in front of his family. So my dad stooped down, he picked up that $20 bill, tapped the man on the shoulder. He said, "Excuse me, sir, this fell out of your pocket." The man knew what was going on. He squeezed tightly into that $20 bill, looks my dad square in the eyes with a tear babbling down the side of his cheek. He said, "Thank you so much, sir. This means the world to me and my family." And we went and got into our car. We didn't go to the circus that night. We eventually went to the circus, so we didn't do without. That story, that experience changed my life forever. And sometimes you don't realize the stories or experiences that we've had in our lives that really do change us and develop our character until something happens and someone reminds us about it. A few weeks ago, I'm at the airport with my son. We're hopping on a plane to go to a concert. And I'm just walking down the concourse, and here's an unopened package of ketchup. And instinctively, I just picked it up and I went and put it in the trash. And I kept walking. When I came back, this father and his young son were sitting across from us. They weren't even on our flight. And he comes over to me and says, "Sir, I watched you pick up a piece of trash that you didn't even drop. Why did you do that?" I pointed it out to my son, and we both thought that was pretty cool. And flippantly, I said, that's what my dad would have done. So you don't think it's a one-off? So my dad, he passed away. And he battled cancer for 6.5 years. So we had plenty of time to plan his funeral, who was going to speak, the music. My dad had a great sense of humor. He even made a list of people he didn't want to attend his funeral. That's pretty funny. And we're gathered in my mother's home, landline at the time. The phone rings. She answers. After the fact, we hear the whole story. It's a young woman. "Is this Mrs. Ruby Clark?" My mom says, "Yeah." "Is your husband S. Wayne Clark?" She says, "Who is this? Why?" She goes, "I just need to know, is your husband S. Wayne Clark?" And my mom said, "Yeah." She said, "I need you to know something." She goes, "A few years ago, I was a young mother. My man left me high and dry with babies and bills. I had no money. I had no diapers. I had no formula for my child. We were completely broke and destitute." She said, "I prayed, and I felt inspired that if I just went to the local grocery store, some miracle would happen." And she goes to the grocery store and she puts just some meager items, some diapers, some formula, just a couple of things in her shopping cart, and she's standing there. And then when she steps up to the cashier to pay for it, the cashier said, "No problem. The man who was in front of you paid for your groceries and left you $100 so you can fill your cart up with more supplies." The lady said, "I ran outside to thank this man and he had already driven away." I don't know if you have that tradition still in our communities here in California or wherever you're from, where when someone passes away, they publish a picture of the deceased and they call it an obituary. And they put a small little, maybe 2 column inches of copy of the eulogy. This lady said, all these years later, I look in the newspaper and I see a picture of the man who paid for my groceries, and it's your husband. Well, obviously, as one of the speakers at the memorial service, I told that story. She was in attendance, got a chance to meet her little daughter who had now grown up, healthy and strong. And I started thinking about, who are you really? And when we identify who we really are, not who we pretend to be, in that moment of authenticity, we can really finely tune the stories that we've had, the experiences we've had that are worth sharing, if we take the time to figure out what the life lessons are, enlist some sort of a process, a coaching program, read some chapters in a really cool book, and figure out how to quantify what you're trying to say to the world using your own experiences, because you know they work, because they've worked on you. The fourth brain chemical is called serotonin. It's the recognition drug. It's that drug where when you want to inspire the people with whom you're interacting on a sales call, if you really, really want to make a difference, remember, the analytics on the sales profession are very, very stark and real. 44% of sales professionals quit after the first sales call. 24% quit after the second sales call. 14% quit after the third call. 12% quit after the fourth sales call. That's 94% of sales professionals who quit by the fourth sales call. And yet 85% of our sales are closed between the fifth and the 12th sales call. So what are you willing to do to make yourself more compelling to be around, more fascinating to listen to? The life of the party because you're a storyteller. What's the essence of referral? It's about reputation. What are people saying behind your back? I love being the MC of an awards banquet because I yank everybody's chain. Welcome to tonight's awards banquet, celebrating what people are saying behind your back. And everybody kind of giggles. No one would even be getting an award if they weren't talking behind your back about how cool you were and how good you were. Can you control reputation? If I just said, yeah, and some of you are like, maybe, comme ci, comme ça. But what if you illustrate it with a story, especially a funny story? How about a joke with a message? Army sergeant calls up commissary. Young private answers the phone. Sergeant says, tell me what we got. Private says, we have 1,500 rifles, 10 takes, and one fat-headed sergeant's Jeep. Sergeant says, what? Private says, we have 1,500 rifles, 10 takes, and one fat-headed sergeant's Jeep. Sergeant says, you know who this is? Private says, no. He says, this is the sergeant. Private says, whoa. You know who this is? Sergeant says, no. He says, good, bye-bye, fathead. That's funny. Reputation matters. And when you illustrate it, people remember. You won't even remember my name. But at some point down the road, you're going to go, I got to tell you this funny joke about reputation. Fathead. So when we talk about serotonin, we want to share stories that inspire the listener, the person with whom we're communicating, to believe that they can actually take it to the next level and be a bigger and better version of themselves. Are you with me? Any of you Boy Scouts? Any of you ever been a Boy Scout? Very cool. Eagle Scout, maybe? Yeah. So I get a phone call from Cherokee District, Boy Scouts of America, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They want to fly me in to be the keynote speaker at their annual luncheon, fundraiser luncheon. And every single program and administrative cost is funded by this one lunch. And the chief executive scout says, Dan, last year's speaker blew it. He just showed up and whipped off some little speech A, and we fell $40,000 short of our goal, and we are screwed. Will you rise to the occasion? I'm like, yes, I will. So I show up, and I'm on stage, and I'm doing my thing, and we're connecting, and everything's going well. And I get to the juggler, and everybody has the donor cards in the middle of the table. And I said, you know what? As a scout, I was taught character education and everything that I needed to learn that was not taught to me in school. To be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And I want to share a story with you, ladies and gentlemen, that validates why we're here today. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm great friends with the general manager of the Marriott Hotel downtown. And every Wednesday, a gentleman dressed in a coat and tie, a business executive, comes into that lobby restaurant, 5-star restaurant, great food. And he usually sits in the same booth. And every Wednesday for months and months, he's conducted a business meeting. And this one Wednesday morning, he shows up in a running suit with a little guy. And the general manager of the restaurant comes up to him and says, wow, you're usually here on business. Who's this? And what's the special occasion? And the dad says, this is my 10-year-old son. And his son excuses himself and goes to the lobby restroom. And dad says to the general manager, it's not a special occasion at all. He said, my son was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he's in for the fight of his life. So we decided to check into the hotel, have some breakfast. We're going to go shopping in the mall connected. We're going to come back. We're going to take a dip in the pool, order room service, and watch a movie together in the room. And he says, my 10-year-old son in his amazing maturity, he says to me, Daddy, I know that the medicine's going to make my hair fall out, so I want to shave my head to remind me that I'm in control of the cancer, that the cancer's not in control of me. You're his dad. What are you going to do? Shave his head too. So dad asks the general manager of the restaurant to please notify his entire staff, tell them the backstory, so that when they show up for breakfast in the morning with their heads shaved, that no one gawks or asks inappropriate questions. Next morning, dad and his son show up for breakfast with their heads shaved. The maitre d' greets them and takes them to their booth. And 2 17-year-old waiters who came to the booth to take their order had shaved their heads too. Both were Eagle Scouts. 10 days later, on his letterhead, the chief scout sends me a personal letter. Dan, not only did we make up the $40,000 deficit from last year, but we exceeded our goal of $100,000. We had 2 separate checks written for $25,000. And in the first time in the history of our fundraising luncheon, we had people who had taken their donor cards and crossed out the amount they were donating and doubled it or tripled it. Thank you for your speech. With all due respect, it didn't have one thing to do with me. It didn't have anything to do with my speech. It had to do with the correctly chosen story that triggered serotonin, which is the recognition drug that I can do that too. Now you amalgamate all of them together. Endorphins, adrenaline, and dopamine are addictive drugs. They don't stay in our body, so we crave them. That's how you develop your unique factor. But serotonin not only affects us, but it affects everybody who watches us engage in service before self. So if I was on this panel and someone asked me the secret to networking events, may I just throw out my 2 cents before I illustrate the last brain chemical? When we come to networking events, most of us come with business cards and a personal agenda of what can I get out of this? And if you'll believe me, that if we show up with no agenda at all, with the comment, how may I serve you? Tell me about yourself. And we get other people talking about themselves. And we know, as we've said, seek to bless, not impress. It's not about us, it's about them. It's amazing how what goes around comes around, and eventually through the law of reciprocity, they will stop talking about themselves and they'll ask us about ourselves, where we now can serve each other and together we rise. I've flown all the fighter jets and bombers in the United States military. I had a chance to soar to the edge of space in a U-2 reconnaissance aircraft. Fitted on the base, fitted in my 130-pound spacesuit. Had to lose 29 pounds. Climbed aboard my aircraft and rapidly climbed to 17 miles above the Earth's surface, where for 5 hours I sat in the sounds of silence, looking at the breathtaking curvature of the Earth, gazing into the endless blackness of the universe, pondering eternity and my place in it. My whole story and adventures explained in my book, The Art of Significance. It's worth reading because it changed my life forever. How? It changed my perspective, my belief, and tied everything that we're talking about into why we need to become that amazing communicator, that amazing storyteller. Is your glass half empty or half full? Or is it refillable? It's perspective. If we could somehow look out the same window right now and see a same lashing California rainstorm, someone would complain what a horrible day, someone else would exclaim what a wonderful day, and the weather did not change. It's perspective. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. If any of you are serious about taking your communication to the next level, I challenge you to make today the day. And we can talk. I hope we'll talk. And it brings me to the final brain chemical. I said there were 6. We're only on number 5. 6 is called cortisol. It's created by guilt, making someone feel bad, holding a grudge, and that's not good. And cortisol stays in our body longer than any of the other brain chemicals. Let's avoid that. Guilt is not a motivator. Discipline is to teach, not to punish. You can't increase a person's performance by making him feel worse. Humiliation immobilizes their behavior. We can go on and on. Just cortisol is a bad idea. But I wanted to conclude with oxytocin because it's the love drug. It's the love drug. And it's one that stays with us forever. And to illustrate, whenever you want someone to believe that they can take their own person to the next level, that you can become the best version of yourself. We hear that all the time, become the best version of yourself. Well, what's the process? Trigger oxytocin and hang around with people who will trigger oxytocin, and we will. We can't help it. Liz said something today in her workshop that I've echoed for years. Competitive advantage is never created by doing more than your competition. It's created by doing what your competition is not willing to do. Niche factor, becoming an amazing storyteller so you trigger the brain chemicals and people feel you, not just hear you. To illustrate, my family matters most to me. My mom's the greatest mom who ever lived. She's 95 years old. She turns 96 on August 6th, and she's still sharp as a tack. She still inspires everyone with whom she comes in contact. The other day, she came to hear me speak. She's sitting on the front row. I introduced her to the crowd. They were so gracious. I said, yeah, my mom, she still inspires everyone with whom she comes in contact. The other day, she goes to the doctor for her annual physical. The doctor said, Ruby, you need more exercise. So she signed up for an aerobics class for seniors. And sure enough, she bent over, jumped up and down, twisted and turned, perspired for over an hour. But by the time she got her leotard on, the class was over. My mom's on the front row. That's not funny. That's not true. I love my mom. My dad, my hero. I've written a lot of songs. Some of you would appreciate my twisted sense of humor in the country genre. One of my hits, Had I Shot You When I Met You, I'd be out of jail by now. Maybe some of you can relate. My wife ran off with my best friend, and I'm going to miss him dearly. Have you ever heard my songs? My junior prom date, she inspired, How Can I Miss You If You Won't Go Away? Are you with me? But I had my first gold record in country music with a guy by the name of Michael Peterson. We wrote Drink, Swear, Steal, and Lie. Teamed up with another great songwriter, Don Schlitz. He's the guy that wrote You Say It Best When You Say Nothing at All, one of the best love songs of all time. He wrote The Gambler for Kenny Rogers. He and I put Kenny Rogers back on the charts. Little boy in his baseball hat stands in the field with his ball and bat. He says, I'm the greatest. He throws his ball, swings, misses strike one, throws his ball, swings, misses strike two, throws his ball, swings, misses strike three. He's out. What does he say? Man, am I a good pitcher? That's a good song. You should watch the music video. But one of the songs I'm most proud of, it used to get a lot of radio play. I wrote about my dad. It's called Special Man. Lyrical hook, any male can be a father, but it takes a special man to be a dad. That's my dad. That's my guy. My dad battled cancer for 6.5 years. And for some odd reason, I wanted to be by his bedside when he took his last breath. That didn't happen for me. I was out of town. I was up in the northwestern United States in Seattle, Washington for 2 days to speak to 2 large trade associations downtown at the convention center. I'm staying out of town at the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel. It's Friday morning, October 12th. I've showered, I've shaved, put on my coat, put on my tie, I'm ready for the day. Phone rings. I think it's my ride downtown to the convention center. So I picked up the phone and I almost flippantly said, I'll be right there. But for some odd reason, I just stood there. 15 seconds of silence later, my younger brother's voice pierces the quietness of the call. Danny? I said, what's up, Paul? He said, Dad died this morning at 7 a.m. I said, whoa. And I sat down on the edge of my bed and the tears just started to fall. Let me interrupt. I have regrets. I don't wish regrets on anybody. I'd give anything to have my dad back one more day. When I teach public speaking, I ask someone who's really ready to share their story with the world, which I'm sure a lot of you are. What would you drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? It helps you focus. And then the tip of the spear, if you had 1 hour to live, what would your message be? I've thought a lot about that since my dad passed. As an author, I love to interview people. My favorite interview is always with an elderly person, elderly meaning older than me. And they will always remind us they do not have regrets for things they did do. They only have regrets for things they did not do. Will you when you leave here? I hope not. Here's our chance. One moment in time can change us forever, especially if we take pieces of each of us home with us in some form or fashion with a guarantee and a promise to keep in touch. I said to my brother, Paul, how's mom? He said, she's all right. I said, give her a big hug and a kiss for me, will you please? Tell her I'll phone her as quickly as I can. And then he asks me the gajillion-dollar question, what are you going to do? And I've already amended that question. Competitive advantage, not what are you willing to do more than your competition? No, what are you willing to do that your competition is not willing to do? Big difference. I said, Mom and Dad have spent an entire lifetime teaching us to keep our promises, to make commitments that we can keep. So I'm going to go speak. That's what Dad would want me to do. As a man of faith and in our religious tradition, I believe my dad's out of his cancer pain. He's in a better place than I am, and I'm going to see him again. And you don't have to agree with that theology at all. It's just mine, and it drives my every day. So I said, you know what? That's what Dad would want me to do. It'll make him proud. I'm going to go speak, and then I'm going to spend the night. I'm going to keep my commitment on Saturday. Then I'm going to hustle home. God knows I need your support. Hopefully I can give you some of mine. I hung up the phone with my brother, and I sat there, and I openly wept like a wee child. This is my dad, my legitimate hero, gone. 15 minutes later, the phone rings again. This time it is my ride. I tell him I'll be right down. I go into the washroom, splash some water on my face, try to freshen up to the best of my ability. I leave my hotel room and I get on the elevator. And as the elevator doors start to close, the corner of the bellman's cart nudges its way through the opening and they bing, back open. And on the elevator comes this way overzealous psycho bellman. I'll never forget him as long as I live. He's pushing this runaway cart onto the elevator. Woo! Forces me back to the right rear corner of the elevator, and I assume the elevator position. Doors closed, we start going down, and he is relentless. Whoa, did you see the beautiful sunshine? He said, I've lived up here in Seattle, Washington, 15 years, rained every single day. You must have brought the good weather with you. What's your name and how you doing? I said, I'm fine. I'm Dan Clark and I'm okay. You know when someone's been staring at you for a while and you don't even have to get eye contact, you can just kind of feel it, just kind of sense it. All of a sudden he says, hey, mister, you're not fine. You've been crying. I said, yeah. I said, I just found out my dad died this morning and I'm really sad. He said, whoa. Elevator comes to the lobby, doors open, he goes his way. I meet my ride. He drives me downtown to the convention center. I'm introduced and I make my speech. I had to dig deeper than I'd ever dug in my whole entire life to make that speech, but you can if you think you can, because when your attitude's right, your abilities will always catch up. I got to the end of my speech and I said to the audience, I'd like to conclude with a little song from one of my albums. And I said, the reason why I want to sing this little song is because my dad died this morning and it's the first time he's ever heard me sing it in public. And again, I dug deeper than I'd ever dug and maybe sang the song better than I'd ever sung it. I concluded my speech and had the driver take me to the Seattle Aquarium. Am I now a hypocrite? I'm saying you can if you think you can. Face your pain, face your troubles. You're no stress, no anxiety. That's an excuse. That's a choice. Come on. And now I'm saying I can't handle it. Give me a cocktail. Take me away. No. I had the driver take me to the Seattle Aquarium to create a meeting. You see why I'm here? See why I know why you're here? You see why we honor the ultimate contractor, connector, whatever you want to call Kelly Holmes? Because she has given us an opportunity to connect heart to heart, spirit to spirit, connect the head with the heart, and do all the things that we need to do to leave to become the best version of ourselves. So I'm at the Seattle Aquarium, away from family distractions and business deadlines, to ask better questions to get better answers. Why are you here? Where did you come from? Why are you here? Where are you going? Who are you going to go with? What is it about? Pain is a signal to grow, not to suffer. Once we learn the lesson the pain is teaching us, the pain goes away. Under pressure, under pressure, we don't rise to the occasion. We fall to our level of training. That's why we train and prepare and practice so hard. Brett's amazing story with the Cleveland Browns. His mind told his fatigued and just emotionally drained, drip dry body that he is going to outrun and outclass every other person at that 3-day camp. And it paid off. Inspirational, dude. So inspirational. So, having learned the life lessons, I had the driver take me back to the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel. And here's where you come into my story. Here's hopefully where you accept my challenge to be your speaker coach, to sign up for whatever I can offer, to pay attention to the stories that we share. The stories we tell ourselves can change. We've heard that all day. But then the stories that we share can uplift and heal the world. I get back to the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel and I walk into my hotel room and there on the dresser of drawers is a basket of fruit. And it's not your basic basket of fruit that's been delivered from the hotel gift shop. We've all seen these little colored cellophane, little bow, little sterile stamp card. They never get our names right. Thanks for staying with us, Sergio. This was the coolest gift I'd ever received. It was a broken, smushed basket. One side was completely caved in. It looked like it was someone's second thought, maybe after hours, no resources available, but they still wanted to make a difference. Can any of you relate? I can see this hotel employee walking through the lobby. They look in the garbage bin. They're like, whoa, that's too good to throw away. Kelly Holmes will be really proud of us. Do more with less. They retrieved it and they took it to my room. Whoever delivered it was into presentation because they turned the broken, smushed part of the basket towards the wall. Whoever delivered it obviously had walked past the big fake tree in the lobby, yanked off one of those fine rubberized leaves, stuck that in front of the broken, smushed part of the basket. In my basket of fruit, there was a tomato and a big giant carrot and a handwritten card that said, Mr. Clark, I'm sure sorry your dad died. I'm supposed to get off work at 5 o'clock. I've asked to stay on all day and all night so I can be here just for you. Room service closes at 10 o'clock. The kitchen has agreed to stay open all night long so they can be here just for you. If you need anything, just call and ask for me. Signed, James, the bellman in the elevator. He's not the only guy who signed my little card. Every single hotel employee that night at the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel signed my little card. I still have it matted and framed hanging on my office wall to this day. Let me debrief and conclude. Here we have the youngest person in the entire employee payroll who seemingly gets it. Gets what? Turning our lives from successful to significance has nothing to do with age. Some of the greatest songs ever written were written by young men and young women. And for the record, every single song ever written was written with the same 12 notes. Do you know this? The only difference between one song and another song is the order in which those 12 notes fall and the timing and spacing in between the notes. So what's the difference between a hit songwriter and a lousy songwriter that have access to the same 12 notes? What's the difference between a great banker and a lousy banker? They have access to the same interest rates and the same economy. What's the difference between a great realtor and a lousy realtor? The answer is the same: passion, creativity, and imagination. The answers are not outside the box. We don't have to think outside the lines. Everything required for us to take ourselves and our organizations to the next level is already inside of us. All we have to do is hang around with the right people, ask the right questions to trigger the right brain chemicals to take action with emotion. Here we have the lowest paid person in the entire employee payroll, who reminds us money can't be the motivator. It's making a difference. And then the last thing, which ties us all together with the team referral network. Why should someone refer you? Why? It's because of what I learned. What I learned from an 18-year-old bellman, James. You see, every single time I speak, I'm relegated to stay at the property. I'm staying at the Sheraton, great hotel connected to this facility. Towels in my room are so fluffy, I'm having a hard time getting my suitcase closed. Are you finding that when you travel? But every single time I speak in Seattle, Washington, I always stay at the Seattle Airport Marriott Hotel. Even if I have to rent a car at my own expense and drive an hour and a half out of my way, why? To stay loyal to a brand, to pay tribute to this young man with the dream, the burning dream and belief that someday, after my 5,500 speeches, 76 countries, 76 South Africa as of the last few days, at some point in one of my speeches, I'm going to have a super stud African-American young man stand up and say, "Dan, it's James. I'm the CEO. Thanks for remembering. I know it's going to happen." And I would hope that it would happen to you as we share our stories to uplift others and give them the courage to stand up for who we are, committed to making a difference no matter when and where we're called upon to do so. Again, I honor each of you for investing in yourself. I guess I would feel better if I got a chance to see you again. Until we do, God bless us. Vote. Remember our military and our prayers and our actions. We honor them. I've been downrange 8 times to Iraq, Afghanistan, firing up our troops. And then it's all consolidated into one, actually 2 words: Kelly Holmes, the ultimate referral connector, whom I absolutely love and respect and honor. My girlfriend, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for bringing us together. And whoever meets me over at my table first, I will give you the 3 books. Thanks.